I want to ask about the Browns because we're coming off of Hard Knocks.
Because of my tie?
And because of your tie. And because Dez Bryant is visiting the Cleveland Browns, right? You've been a former Packer going to visit other teams, and you know how this game is played. It doesn't feel like there's any other visits lined up, and it doesn't feel like either have been all that invested in this happening, or at least happening right away. What's your sense of what happens during and after that meeting between Dez Bryant and the Browns?
Obviously, the Browns are going to go into this looking at where he is mentally and, most importantly, physically. With the workout, they want to see what kind of shape he's in. They're going to make sure he's running the route tree to their liking. And again, on air, anyone can run really good, crisp routes. It's when there's a defender in front of you, how those routes now are changed. So I think Dez Bryant's approach is, I want to see what the culture's like. I want to see if it'll be a good fit for me. Well, if I were in his corner, I would say, look, Dez, we need to get you on the field. It's not so much if it's a good fit for you. This is like the only option that's out there.
It does feel like it's kind of the only option. What led, like there's a pie, right? It's not like one thing. Right? You got to cut it up into pie. What's the biggest thing that's led him to being on the street? I know some of it is when he was ultimately released. Okay. Some of it is the fact that he had a lot of drops last year. Some of it is that he's not as athletic as he used to be. He's not a great route runner. Some of it is the personality. Like, if you had to go in order, what's the biggest thing and what's the thing that really we pay more attention to than they actually do in the NFL?
I think the biggest thing is his lack of production. His production declined. And anytime you are an older player in this league, the league doesn't get older, it gets younger.
Right.
And your production doesn't stay at least consistent and it starts to decline, that is a additional knock on you of why you're not going to make as much money. And it gives us the option of, well, is he even worth us paying him? And so I think that's the biggest deal. His production went down and his drops went up. So when you look at those two things and you look at a receiver and then you add in, I don't want to call them antics, but his passion that can sometimes get in the way of his play on the sidelines and impact and influence.
Those are antics, Greg. Like, look, and then tweeting that dudes that you used to play with are snakes, and that's one of the reasons
that all happened after the fact. Yes, but during a season, you're going to have to deal with his emotional roller coaster of lack of targets, lack of opportunities, whichever one you want to put it in the category of, and then whether or not he feels like he's being utilized the way he feels he should be utilized. And that, for me, is the biggest thing. From a player's side, your pride.
Yeah, I mean, like, Adrian Peterson last year, right? Adrian Peterson, who's a first ballot Hall of Famer. First ballot Hall of Famer. Goes to New Orleans and not getting the touches, not feeling the love, different role. They got 3 running backs and said he could do it. Said he would do it for less money. The moment they traded him, the second they traded him, they became a dynamic offense. Mm-hmm. The second they did. And I think that's people's fear is we're going to go get a guy who's only played one way. And even though I think the way that if you're a Dez Bryant fan or even Dez Bryant, like, look, you got Jarvis Landry. He's the number one. He commands a double team. I go against the second best cornerback. I may have lost a step, but I haven't lost 2 steps. Like, in his mind, this will give me a chance to be even better. The reality is, though, he's not going to do well without all those targets.
No, he needs them if he's trying to stay in the league and accumulate those statistics that he once had. Here's a deal. When you're a player in Dez Bryant's position, it's different when you have all the leverage. He has 0 leverage. So the Browns are sitting with the upper hand, in the better suited hand, saying, okay, when you come in for this visit, are you going to be willing to adjust and pretty much take on who we want you to become and who we need you to be for our team? If you're not, then we don't even want to deal with it. If you come in with Dez Bryant can go into Cleveland today and say all the right things and get himself a job and then turn into whatever. But sometimes you got to play that game. You need to let them know, look, I'm not coming in here trying to be the guy who gets all the targets. I want to come in here and work. You can say all those things and it potentially will get you a job, because the Cleveland Browns, they do need depth, and they're relying on Rashard Higgins and Antonio Callaway to step up and fill the void of Josh Gordon, who we don't know his status.
All right. Speaking of depth, the Patriots need some depth at wide receiver, right? They're not going to have Edelman first 4 games. I don't make a big deal about the Brady being frustrated deal, but I do make a big deal of Philip Dorsett goes down with an injury. Doesn't seem to be serious, but like I'm trying to find out who else other than Rob Gronkowski and his running backs is he going to throw the football to? What are your thoughts on what can only be described as an average at best Patriots wide receiving core on paper?
I am concerned. I'm not concerned with what Tom Brady can do with the pieces that you put, or the pieces that you afford him to play with, because we've seen him do more with less than any other quarterback in this league. However, when I look at just their receiving core, and you talk about Edelman not being there for the first 4 games, you lost Amendola, you lost Cooks, you bring in a Cordell Patterson who really isn't a receiver. He's more of a slash player.
He's a specialist.
He's a specialist, but he's a gadget player.
Right.
And they don't have the easiest offense to learn. And he's going to have to acclimate himself and discipline himself. Again, another person he has all the talent in the world, but can he discipline himself to run those routes, to be where Tom needs him to be? I don't concern myself with Tom, but these young receivers, they're worse off than what he's ever had.
No, listen, it's a little bit like what they had on defense last year. It just seems to not have any playmakers outside, obviously, of Rob Gronkowski, if healthy. Greg James, have you been contacted by the Patriots?
You know what? I have not been contacted, but if you are looking to contact me, I am off limits. I have no interest in going back to that.
No interest in playing. We'll be covering the games this year for the NFL on Fox. All right, thanks so much, Greg.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd, or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.